Hey everybody, Paradox2767 here with 8 different classroom ideas for LEGO's new Modular Hogwarts system. Now if you've seen some of my videos recently, you've already seen a few of these being built, so I'll put a timestamp at the bottom of the video to let you know where to skip and catch up on my 4 newest builds. But for the rest of you, get ready for 8 hopefully inspiring ways to spice up your own LEGO Hogwarts sets. Now if you're not yet familiar with some of LEGO's new modular Hogwarts sets, here's an example of one. This is the new Flying Lessons set, and if you turn it around, it comes with 2 different classrooms. In this set, those classrooms are a storage area for a bunch of different Quidditch supplies and McGonagall's Transfiguration classroom. Now this set came with Harry, Malfoy, and Neville, and I picked up a Hermione today, like I'll talk about later, just to spice up the diorama. And then you can see McGonagall turns a parrot into a water goblet, as she does in the second film. But this whole system got me thinking, if you just did the same thing LEGO does and have an 8x12 base with a couple of brackets on the side, and especially these holes for the pins in the back, you can make your own classrooms that fit perfectly with the new modular Hogwarts. So I decided to make those very classrooms. The first diorama I made is a mirror of Erised from the first film, which depicts Ron in front of the mirror, and when he steps closer, he sees what he wants to see, which is an older version of himself holding the Quidditch cup. I included some riches in the background, because his financial troubles are no more in Ron's ideal world, and a broomstick. And in the back here, it's just a simple box which has an access panel for switching out characters, if needed. So that was the first mock, the one that began it all. The next one I came up with was Draco Malfoy in the Room of Requirement. If you remember from the 6th movie, he stands in front of what's called a vanishing cabinet and is therefore able to have a portal to Nocturne Alley. The rest of the room is basically a storage place for a bunch of different magical artifacts, and that's sort of what I tried to depict here. So we have, of course, the vanishing cabinet and Malfoy himself. Then I included the apple that he uses to test the vanishing cabinet. I have a blue book representing the Half-Blood Prince's textbook that Harry and Ginny take to the room to basically lose on purpose. I've got some armor, some chains, some spare cash, and a spare wand. Just other things that you might find in that Room of Requirement. And then because this attaches to Nocturne Alley, I have it represented on the flip side of this diorama. And this is basically my depiction of Nocturne Alley. I know this comes from a specific set from back in the day where the vanishing cabinet leads to, and then I've got a couple other creepy artifacts to basically represent the fact that this is a way to portal to Nocturne Alley. After that, I made kind of a lore-heavy entrance to the Gryffindor girls' dormitory, and we'll get into the story in just a minute. I used some forced perspective, so the entrance archway leads up those stairs, down a hallway, and to the door to that very dormitory. Outside of that dorm, I have a few valentines that were just left outside by other Gryffindor students, because if you remember in the book, there's actually a force field here that prevents boys from entering the girls' dormitory, probably much needed, but they're all leaving those valentines for a specific Gryffindor student who we'll talk about at the end of the video. But having failed to get the valentines to her this way, the students kept trying other methods. One tried to send an owl, so here I have a micro version of the owlry and an owl flying, represented by some clear bricks. At one point, the popular student in question got so fed up that she actually popped one of the students in a painting. I picture this to be the painting in the hallway, which is how the Gryffindor students get into the dormitory in the first place. And then who should write about all of this interesting Hogwarts love but Rita Skeeter herself, who I have represented simply under the stairs writing her articles with a floating quill and a floating bit of parchment, as she does in the 4th film. And then when you look out, you can see from the right angle the owlry building, just as in the 4th film where they're under the stairs and there's a bit of window for some natural lighting. So that is the entrance to the girls' dormitory, and we're going to return to that dormitory in just a few more mocks. Next came Snape's potion supply closet, and it's a favorite of mine. I have in here Professor Moody for good reason. If you remember in the 4th one, Snape accuses Harry, Hermione, and Ron of stealing ingredients for Polyjuice Potion, but in fact it is Barty Crouch Jr. and is stealing those ingredients to keep himself looking like Mad Eye. It opens up like this so you can get a better view of those 66 unique different potion bottle designs, and Moody himself keeping an eye out in the dark of night, making sure no one catches him stealing supplies. Now we'll pop over to the next build, which continues the lore of that Gryffindor girls' dormitory. In fact, it was Hermione receiving all those letters after her appearance in that Yule Ball dress that all nerds think is such a great dress. Yeah, this is the last set in which I had any of these tan bricks to use, and so the rest will not feature those lovely bricks. And in fact, I thought at this point I would be done making mocks, but you'll see I dug deep and found some pieces to put together a few more after this. But anyway, this is Hermione's dorm. It's quite cramped from the inside. In fact, a lot of her Gryffindor roommates complain of all the different stands she's crammed in the small space to fit all her books and magical artifacts. Actually, just today, this is when I picked up that other Hermione figurine from Half Price Books, and it came with a few different props that I decided, oh, I'll use those for Hermione's room. But since this takes place in the 4th film, I have her as a little bit of an older version in some lounge wear, basically, just hanging out, getting ready for bed. This stand and this desk here are from that poly bag, and then here we also have a picture of, I believe it's Dumbledore's magic card that she has, some Hogwarts school spirit there, and then here, because Victor Crumb is showing such an interest in her, she's doing the same with a poster of his school logo. Under her bed is another memento given to her by Victor Crumb, just a uniform of his for her to think of him by. On the other side of the bed, we also have a hidden bit of, contraband magic artifacts, because Hermione always getting herself into trouble. We've got a bit of potion or perhaps perfume here, a couple different books because she's of course quick to read. Her owl is set up by this window, which is just a half arch because I imagine it continuing throughout the girls' dormitory this way. She's got a bit of an astrolabe to check the stars, and then over here she's got a nightlight to read by, given to her by her muggle parents, thinking that she would need it at school. Of course she doesn't, owning a wand, but so charmed she decided to hang it up instead. She's got a bit of a Gryffindor banner, and then a favorite book of hers on her bed, learning a little bit about herbology it looks like, and then one of the letters has been delivered here, another unrequited love letter that she's getting pretty fed up by, wishing she hadn't worn that dress to the Yule Ball perhaps, and then here is one that she's actually keeping, and another heart-shaped Valentine, both of those being from Victor Crumb, which she's not too upset about having received. So that is that kind of lore-heavy mock for Hermione's dorm room. Next up, we have this travesty of a forced perspective mock. I was running out of tan bricks, so I had to switch to gray, and so I decided to make a Hogwarts basement. Like I said, a little forced perspective. The archways are shrinking as you go back, all the way back here to a micro scale, and I've just got a few Easter eggs from the first few Harry Potter movies of some of the things that were found in the basement dungeons of Hogwarts. So here we have a bit of Devil's Snare and a Philosopher's Stone surrounded by the flames of Voldemort. This is a troll in the dungeon on kind of a half micro scale holding his club, and then way back there you see indeed a basilisk crawling around in that micro scale version. So this is just kind of a bunch of Easter eggs and references I crammed in a tiny mock. Next up, I have the entrance to Slytherin's common room. So I've got a few snakes there for detail, a little green gem up top, and then you can open the door and see what there is to see inside. So we've got a little bit of torch for some lighting, even the evil Slytherins need to see. There's a couple spiders here, some contraband magic items. Draco looks like he left a giant barrel of gold around in his Nimbus 2001. There's a cocktail of green elixir for all students when they come into the nice little common room here. Some stairs upwards, an archway downwards, so there's a couple different directions you can go from here. A couple of snake fang details for style points, but basically just kind of a dank dungeon of a common room in general. I even have the floor to be kind of a grate, so it looks a little bit, underground, if you will. And that's what I came up with for a microscale Slytherin's dorm room. And then, although I was running out of bricks, I did come up with one last mock. I was kind of committed to the idea of making 8 for the 8 Harry Potter films, and this is sort of a detail from Hogwarts that's mentioned mostly in the books. It's basically the leaderboard for which house is in the lead. In my head, this little pointer here shows you which house is doing the best this far in the semester. Right now, of course, Ravenclaw, being my own house, is in the lead. We have a couple little light features here for students to check the leaderboard whenever they'd like. In the books, I think it's represented in like tubes of different colors, but here I thought this was a nice little way to have an interactive wheel, which you can adjust if you're a Gryffindor for some reason, or Hufflepuff, or Slytherin. So that is the final build I came up with. It ended up being actually a favorite of mine, believe it or not, because I don't know if it's my absolute first, but one of my first Harry Potter sets had this piece within it, and so the nostalgia here is very strong. I knew I wanted to work in at least one of these green pieces because this is very Lego Harry Potter. Like if you ever got any of the old sets, that green piece is certainly included. I mean, they even know that when they're designing some of these new sets, I'm convinced. Like when you get these green details, to me that's an homage essentially. And so, believe it or not, as simple and kind of goofy as this last mock is, it ended up being one of my very favorites. Thank you so much for watching. I hope some of these mini mocks inspired you to make your own LEGO Hogwarts creations. And if you'd like to leave a comment below, I'd love to hear your favorites or some ideas you have for your own classrooms, some ideas you have to improve some of mine, and we can talk about it down below. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.